Hey, everybody. Welcome to our critical Q&A number 490, live streaming to you on this 16th day of, what is it, January, February, March, in the year of our Lord, 2025. Hey, everybody. Let's switch over to our host and chat screen so we can see your comments up here as we are beginning our advance into destiny, into our destiny. Where are we going? What's happening in the world today? Let's see if we can find some answers. Glad you're here joining me today. I really am. We got a lot to talk about, I guess. I have been so bad at this over the last couple weeks, even with Post-it notes reminding me to do so. I've got two preset questions. We are going to get to those from questions that were emailed to me. I've actually got a few more that I didn't even enter into the thing today, so I need to get that caught up. But anyway, Mel is good. Hey, Sam, thank you for that super chat. You are very welcome. Benson is good. In fact, let's go ahead and let's get the Q&A turned on. Please put your questions here, as I always do. Let's start that. So I got the little chat box here, and I'm looking over here today because there is some kind of technical incompatibility issue between the drivers or something on my teleprompter and my camera and the ATEM here, my switcher. So I'm going to sort that out. It's been a thing for a few weeks, and I've sort of coped with it, and I'm going to, today I was just not going to cope with it, so I've got the questions over here, and we're going to get that technical stuff sorted out, but I didn't want that to be a bother for you guys. Okay, so you can throw your questions in there. Now, while that's going, I wanted to give you some Benson cam. So here is our, this is very similar to last week actually, but for different reasons. This was him literally 10 minutes ago in our living room. He is over there falling asleep. You can see how sleepy my little bundle of furry joy is here. He's up on top of his throne on top of the couch there, keeping guard on the house, which is where he likes to take a nap sometimes. And we had a little bit of an extended adventure walk this morning. Mel and I and he went out and walked all the way up to the grocery store and back. And so he had more than his usual walk today. And that's why I think he's a little pooped. So he's chilling there. And you can see he's just so tired. I was like, hey, are you okay, buddy? And he was like, oh, I'm so good. I'm just so tired. So he's just chilling there. So that's our little guy. Let's switch back over here and get back to my smiling mug. All right. So there's some Benson cam for you. So let's see. I did not actually set up or prepare today any kind of monologuing. I don't have some big speech for you today. Sorry. I would say that it's been a rough week. And yet at the same time, there were some things that happened this week that were awesome for what I'm trying to do behind the scenes here with my channel and whatnot. I hit on some technical. DaVinci Resolve is the software that I use to edit my videos and my podcasts and everything. And it's really, really good software. And I've used it for years, but I have barely scratched the surface all these years in what this software can actually do. It's pro level movie making software. It's the kind of thing that studios actually use. And so it's got a lot of oomph. There's a lot of horsepower there, and I have never really let it out of the garage. And I've learned a few things over the years, but I've never settled in and really learned it. And so I'm excited to be doing that now. I'm on this little, you kind of have to, there's a thing with, I'm going to say it this way. It's the best way I know how to say it. Having ADHD and whatever other degree of other things I've got going on. You know, even with medications and with help, and knowing that you have it, and knowing that you set reminders and post-it notes and things around and stuff you do to cope with the attention all over the place sometimes, the inability to focus, right? Or conversely, it's a bit of a ping pong world where you can end up hyper focusing on things, and you have control over that sometimes, and you don't have control over that other times. And you can hyper focus on really negative stuff sometimes and get into these negative feedback loops and that kind of stuff. But that's not all there is to ADHD at all. Sometimes you can hyper focus, or your attention just goes to places and you get super, super excited and interested in stuff for a period of time. And it's coming to know or learn or accept, I think, that that is not always under your control, but when you can corral it in a direction, you can maybe sometimes make it work for you. And I'm trying to do that right now because I've got this book project that I'm working on, which I have absolutely no interest in for like the last week or two. I got up to certain steps, I got certain things done, and then suddenly I just wasn't interested in it. And when that happens, it doesn't mean that there's something horribly, horribly wrong with me morally, which I used to think. And instead, what I need to do in sort of managing this is, and these are my own sort of ideas, no doctor or therapist or anybody told me to do this, but I'm just sharing with you guys how I'm kind of coping and dealing with this. Maybe it'll be useful. Is you just kind of have to ride that wave and go, okay, well, I'm not super interested in writing right now, but I am super interested in editing and motion graphics for some reason. That really got my goat right now. I'm really into it, right? Get my goat, I think that's the wrong expression, but I'm really interested, right? So let's see if I can use some of this hyper focus in that direction. And it turns out right now I can. And so I've got a lot of learning. And the great thing about learning is once you learn it, you generally don't have to go back and learn it again unless you don't use it. And this is stuff I use every day. So I'm trying to use this motion, this like thing, right? As a Scientology term, use this motion to your advantage. But it's using this focus thing, right? And trying to go, okay, well, I've got some stuff I need to learn. Let's plow in on that and do it, right? And in the process of doing that, organize some things better in terms of my workflow. And I've now scripted 21 YouTube shorts. I said I couldn't figure out how to get my work into a short 1-minute format, a couple months ago. Well, I did some work and I figured it out, right? So I've got all these shorts sort of scripted, and I've got this 5-part series I'm working on, part 2 right now. I'm really working on it. That's how this all started, is I was working on part 2 and I got all into the video graphics of it. I started throwing some stock video and some graphics on the screen, and I wanted it to be better, and I wanted it to be better. And then it just kind of, wow, this is really going to be a lot better than I've produced stuff before, but it's more work and there's more learning to it. So, now make sure that y'all get your questions, once a witness here, for example, into the question box, or I won't be able to pull them up on the screen and answer them. Okay, just glancing over at the comments here. So, yeah, so that's kind of some stuff that's kind of going on right now, right? Is I am going to get back to the book writing. There's no question that that's going to get done. That's not the point of what I'm saying today. I'm just saying that you got to use that focus, and that, you can kind of react badly, or you can kind of try to be like, okay, how can I, you're riding this bull basically, right? And how do you get it, in some other direction? So just doing the best I can with that. Okay, let's get to your questions. Let's go to our first one, which is, like I said, the preset ones. I think it's going to be this here. Yeah, there we go. This is from Matt Bywater. All right. I mentioned a while ago that there is a clip from Hubbard's interview with the Granada reporter where he admitted to abuses taking place in Scientology, albeit not at his direction. I found the clip. It's attached. I'm not going to show it to you today, by the way, as part of this question. It's the black and white film of The Secret World of L. Ron Hubbard or Scientology or something, that 1969 BBC interview with Hubbard that you might have seen, where you see his teeth and whatnot. Mark Bunker just recently did a 4K restoration of that. So he's referring to that interview. And even though, he says here, Matt asks, even though Hubbard is blaming other people in Scientology, I still found it bizarre that he took the risk of expecting a reporter to take such revealing comments off the record. Almost everyone knows that that isn't standard journalistic practice. That said, I don't think the original broadcast of The Shrinking World of L. Ron Hubbard featured this clip. It did, however, feature in Going Clear, however they managed to access it. Yeah. Well, I can't speak at all, of course, to how this clip did or didn't appear in the BBC broadcast. But here's the thing about Hubbard and about people like him. When you are crafting a deception on the order of what Scientology is, and you are the central guru of this, that people are adoring you and almost worshiping at your feet, and certainly we can say that there were Scientologists who are like that. Maybe not all Scientologists were worshiping or groveling at L. Ron Hubbard's feet, obviously. But he had adoring fans. He had people who very much hung on his every word, especially during those St. Hill years when he was lecturing to people who were flying from all over the world to come see him. And when he took off onto the ocean, he had to leave that behind, not, I don't think, by his choice. I think if Hubbard had had his way, he would have stayed in England and he would have kept going there. But the UK government and the American government kept coming after him for all his criminal, fraudulent ways. But there's a sort of ego fest that happens with, I think, anybody. I don't think we have to talk about just narcissists here, but I think that it's only narcissistic guru Hubbard types who take it so far. But everybody kind of revels a little bit in the secrecy of getting away with stuff that other people aren't catching on to. You know, when you're fooling people or you're getting one over on people, it's a little hard to keep it to yourself because it's so, you feel like you're really doing something amazing, you know. It's like, don't you, and you want somebody to know that you're doing this, you know. It's this very strange thing. Not everybody who fools people, I think, would think this way, but grandiose personalities like Hubbard certainly would. That, you know, they crave admiration. Hubbard gave I was thinking about this earlier today. We haven't talked about it much over the years, but, you know, there was a period of time in 1952, 53, where L. Ron Hubbard was just obsessed with the subject of admiration and being admired, and really laid it into the DNA of Scientology. He talked about it a lot in lectures and stuff. There's a whole lecture set called Admiration and the Renaissance of Beingness, right? This is the title they gave to this lecture series, which is all about being admired, and how Hubbard specifically says that Thetans crave particles. They crave things being given to them or being thrown at them, but the most craved, the one that people want the most, the thing they want more from other beings, from other living entities, what they want more than anything else is admiration. Well, Hubbard was certainly speaking out of his own soul there, in saying that. Not everybody craves admiration, but Hubbard sure did. And I think grandiose personalities like that are desperate to tell somebody what they're getting away with, because otherwise nobody's going to know. If you pull off the perfect crime, No one ever knows. But if you're a grandiose personality that needs your narcissistic supply, you need people to be admiring you for your good works, you know, for the things you do, then it's going to be, you're in a little bit of a twisted situation there, aren't you? You know, you're pulling off this perfect crime or perfect fraud, and yet there's nobody to admire you for it. And apparently, I mean, John Atack has told me a couple times, referring specifically to this Granada reporter and incident, that there's this anecdote that Hubbard straight up told this reporter, I like to fool the, you know, I like to fool the smart ones, right? I like to get one over on the people who, you know, who are smart or intelligent or who think they are, right? And that's how he thinks of himself, as being more intelligent or more clever than those smart people, right? So that's kind of, that's what I think answers this question. So I'll keep it short and to that, and let's go to the next one. I don't want to like add all space on this. We're just going to get these out of the way right now. So Emma Gables, and do feel free, my voice is cracking, do feel free to email me with questions if you have them for me, right? If they don't occur to you while we're live, or you're watching this after this is live and you're like, hey, I got a question for this guy, email me, askchrisshelton@gmail.com. That's the email address. It's down below in the description. You can always email me at that email address with any question you have, whether it's meant for on air or if you just want to ask me something, or reach out to me for some reason. You can always use that email. So let's get this one done. Emma Gables, do auditors ever let sessions run long on purpose as to go over the amount of auditing the pre-clear has purchased in order to essentially force the pre-clear to use money they have on account or go into the negatives with the organization to purchase another intensive? For example, if I purchased one intensive and on my most recent session I only had 3 hours left on that intensive, but the auditor felt we hadn't gotten through the process for another 3 hours, so we spend 6 hours total auditing, how would that be handled? I only paid for 12 and a half hours of auditing, but ended up spending 15 and a half there due to the process seemingly requiring it. What happens in that instance? I'll tell you exactly what happens. Is the auditor will continue the session without any concern or attention on how many hours you have on account. That is not the auditor's job to worry about that when you're in an auditing session. The auditor will not start an auditing session on you unless the auditor feels they have enough time, paid hours, to do what needs to be done. But if it goes over, it goes over, and it just goes over. And there's nothing that anybody can do about that, as you described in your question. So if you go over, what happens? You go down to the examiner and they put you on the cans and you get your floating needle and the session is all done, and they walk you, they body route you. Right? They literally grab you if they need to, right? And they take you down to the salespeople, the registrar. And you're now over, right? You've gone over your hours. You now owe the org money. And you can, you could, if it was a repair type action that was not actual just grade chart auditing that you're getting, if you were only in for like a repair session or a kind of auditing where it wasn't with the expectation that you were going to continue your auditing, like going up the bridge or something, right? I'm wording that badly. Let me back up a second. If you're going up the bridge, you're doing your grades, you're doing your Dianetics, you're doing your OT levels or whatever, right? They're selling you blocks of auditing and intensives, 12 and a half hours. So they're just going to want to debit another intensive. And if you don't have that on account, you haven't paid for another intensive, then they're going to say, well, you got to pay for one now because you're over. You owe us, right? Let's go. Pay for the intensive. And you got to beg, borrow, steal, whatever you got to do to pay for another intensive, or bang it on your credit card, or, you know, withdraw it from your, kid's college fund or something. You're going to figure it out. And another intensive has to go onto your account from which they can debit those hours. Now, if it's a repair session, then you have a situation where if it's not like regular grade chart auditing, Then you have the option, or potentially have the option, of paying for hourly rates for auditing. That's where I was trying to get to with all this, is you can pay by the hour. And if it's repair auditing, then there's a review rate, which is only a few $100s an hour. And that's what you would pay for those 3 hours you went over, is they go, oh, this was a repair, so you owe for 3 hours with no expectation that you're going to go back in tomorrow or the next day or next week. This was just a repair. And if that repair is done and we're all happy with it, then good, you don't need to go back in session and you can finish the repair. You can attest to having finished the repair, right? It's all done. If you come out of session and you owe the money, and the CS says, yeah, the case supervisor and the auditors say, yeah, you actually need more auditing and we got to get you back in, then it's to the salespeople, to sell you more intensives of auditing. So basically, all of that to say, you're either going to have to get another intensive or you're going to have to pay for some hours of auditing by the hour, one or the other. God, I over-explain stuff. Okay, so there you go. All right, let's go back to our host and chat screen here. Okay. Yeah, exactly. George says here that they didn't air that because of they take a reputation here for that. I agree that is that is true. Okay, let's get on with your questions in the queue here now. First one up. Okay, once a witness. With Mike Rinder's death, do you think Leah Remini will do another Scientology series on her own? If she asked you to be part of the production of the show, would you do it? Of course I would. I mean, there wouldn't even be a question about that. I would leap at the chance, but I don't think that's the direction Leah's going in. Leah's continuing with her education right now in college. She has this lawsuit that she's bringing against Scientology, which they have just, they're in the middle of an appeal process on one decision that's not even an appeal of any, it's still in the pre-trial activities. That's where that lawsuit stands. It's still years forward before Leah's going to see her lawsuit get in front of a jury. Scientology is going to do everything they can to delay it, and right now they are doing that. If Leah asked me to do pretty much anything, I'd probably do it, right? So that's not really much of a question. But that's really all I can say in terms of Leah, because I'm not going to say anything else private that about our relationship. But I don't have any information or knowledge about what her future plans are beyond what I just said. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I've been thinking an awful lot about Scientology criticism lately. I have, as you guys know, I sort of stepped out and away from making content that is just exclusively about Scientology, except for when I'm interviewing people and stuff. I don't know if that was actually a really smart idea, to be honest with you guys. Not sure. The Scientology space on YouTube just became and is still so disgusting to me that I didn't want to have anything to do with it, So I just kind of moved on to other stuff and trying to build that up. So we'll just carry on and see how this goes. Okay. Carry on here. Lutz Albrecht, any thoughts on the Enola Gay incident, i.e. erasure of military history just over a hatred for DEI? Oh yeah, I heard about this. They were removing records and taking things out of not only like with things that are being paid for, but like apparently websites and archives and information and stuff is being gotten rid of if it has anything to do with anything connected with keywords connected to the subjects of diversity, equity, or equality and inclusiveness, right? DEI. So the word gay is massive, is searched through whatever government database or records or stuff. And Enola Gay falls into this mix, the name of the airplane that delivered the bomb to Hiroshima. And so they're going to, wipe this out from the National Archives or get rid of these photos and information just because it gets caught in this too broad of a net of trying to get rid of all this DEI crap, right? This is a real mission for Elon Musk right now, more so than I think anybody else. He's got personal reasons for this, and he is really on a tear. A moral crusade, would be one way of thinking about how I think he thinks about what he's doing. I've already commented on him enough. I don't know that you guys need to hear too much more about me ranting about Musk. I did have one thing to say about him, though, that I put on a note today because I thought it might come up. Because if Elon Musk has a transgender daughter, and he doesn't like that. He's not down with that at all. And so apparently part of this whole crusade that he's on, and with Doge and all the rest of this stuff and all this crap is, and he's not the only driver of this. I'm sorry if I'm coming across like he is. He's not the only driver, but he is a man on a mission. And I think, I think he thinks that somehow the entire LGBTQ spectrum of activity, and certainly the trans spectrum, is all just some product of brainwashing or something, which it most certainly is not. And he thinks, well, we're just going to, somehow erase this from history, and we'll erase it from people's minds, and then, it won't exist anymore or something, and I'll get my kid back or something. I don't know what goes through that guy's head as far as that goes, but there's an emotional, one of the notes that I made here regarding him that I wanted to mention today. So I'll just say this and move on. Emotional immaturity at a level that is hard to grasp. Like he's childlike when it comes to his emotions. An overinflated sense of his own intelligence and reason, as we've talked about, right? His biggest fatal flaw, and it's a big, huge, gigantic one. And where it would be difficult or rocky for anybody to have this attitude, for somebody like Elon Musk, it's a catastrophic fatal flaw, and that is that he thinks when he, anywhere he goes, any situation he runs into, he can figure it out. He is the master of this. He is smarter than everybody else. He, he's got this real thing about, I can just bust through and break it open and make it work and make things happen, and sincerely believes in what he's doing, right? So I thought to myself, Billy from the Twilight Zone. Just thought I'd throw that out there, right? Remember that old Twilight Zone about the kid who could do anything and send you places if he got pissed at you? With his mind, he could just think things and they would manifest. He's kind of like that. At least that was, I thought, a good comparison. Okay. Anthony Spurgeon. Who's your favorite Greek god? Anthony, I love your questions, man. Who's your favorite Greek god, and thoughts on the upcoming Nolan Odyssey movie? Okay. The only thing I can say and know about the Odyssey movie right now is that I think some historians or people have there was some furor about the photo with Matt Damon in the outfit as Odysseus, and how it was historically inaccurate or something, right? It's always something. And I'm a real stickler for that stuff too, but it just cracks me up that there's always something, right? People always have something to say about anything, especially these days. We're so negative about everything now. Social media has turned us into the worst versions of ourselves on that point. My favorite Greek god changes. I used to sit in the library as a child, go down to the Pasadena Public Library. I spent so many hours in that library. I would get on my bike and I'd ride to the library during the summer 5 days a week. I mean, I was down there a lot. And I'd spend time in the stacks, and I'd spend time over in the history section. For some reason, I was really fascinated with World War II stuff for a while as a kid, especially the guns. Because the reason I got onto that was because Han Solo's gun from Star Wars was based off of a German gun when they put it together. And so I got real fascinated in that for some reason and connecting those dots. Anyway, but most of my time was spent in the kids section. I wasn't spending most of my time in the adult section looking at gory World War II stuff. And it wasn't the gory stuff that interested me at all. I didn't want to look at gory stuff. I wanted to look at the equipment and the plane. And I got on the airplanes. Anyway, I'm wandering. I spent a lot of time reading Greek mythology. Is where I was going with all that. Roman mythology and Greek mythology. I love the Greek gods. Read so much about that. Loki was fascinating to me, but I thought that he was a dick. Thor was of very little interest to me as a Greek god when I was growing up reading the stories. Let me see here. I was into some of the... See, I'm sorry, I just said Thor. Hold on a second. I'm probably mixing my mythology in my head right now. Yeah, the Olympians and the Titans. I was really interested in the Titans. I wanted to know more about them. I remember that. Let me pull up the names here. Aphrodite. Oh, Athena. That was it. Athena was the one that I was interested in the most. That was my favorite Greek god because she was the goddess of reason, wisdom, and war. And I was very interested as a child in all three of those things. That was it. Apparently she's a major figure in the Odyssey. I never read the Iliad or the Odyssey. I still haven't. But I would read these short stories about the Greek gods and the various stories of them. I remember reading about Perseus and Heracles. Yeah, I'm just reading from this here because that's where Athena would come in often, was in those stories. So I was kind of into that. That's my favorite. That was my favorite. And I loved, this all coincided very much with the movie Clash of the Titans, which I think was 1980. Let's check here. The original Clash of the Titans, the one with Harry Hamlin. Not the 2010 one. What was the original one? 1981. I was 11 years old, all right? 10 or 11 years old. And, Clash of the Titans I was all about that. So that's how I kind of got super, super interested in Greek mythology. Okay, let's move on. Spending too much time on that. Robert Tobias, during the infamous Ted Koppel interview with DM, Miscavige refers to some kind of plot by Sykes to imprison people in Alaska. What was he referring to? Okay. In the 1950s, in the mid-1950s, there was a bill to fund mental health facilities in Alaska. There was going to be a large mental health facility built up there. If I recall correctly, and I did do a breakdown on this at some point years ago where I remembered a lot more details. So I'm only going to give you the broad strokes here today because all the details of this escape me right now. But Hubbard joined on with other groups that were concerned about either monetary spending or spending on mental health stuff or stuff like this, right? There were groups who were against this spending bill and didn't want it to happen. Hubbard glommed onto this and called it the Siberian-Alaska bill or something, Alaska-Siberian bill, where they were going to, the selling point of not voting for this or not allowing this to happen was that nefarious forces in psychiatry were working in our government or with our government to create a Siberia here in America. Where it would be, Siberia being the infamous place that they will send you in the USSR and Soviet Russia, where you'll just disappear. That's where people get disappeared to, and then they die. Siberia is a very cold, dark, horrible place to be. If you're in a Russian prison in Siberia, right? It's cold, it's horrible. So at least a lot of the time of the year it is. And so this was compared to that. Right. This is the beginning, Cold War, ramping up and all of that. People don't want anything Russian, don't want to have anything to do with anything Russian. This is how the Pledge of Allegiance was changed to under God and all this kind of crap. So Hubbard was trying to use that to make to be part of the group of people who were going to stop this bill from happening. And he saw it as sort of public, you know, a way to publicly lash out against psychiatry, to give them a black eye, you know, and so he told the Scientologists, let's get on board with this and let's fight this Sibera bill. Well, it didn't go through for reasons that I don't believe were in any way connected to Hubbard's work. But possibly. I mean, it might have been that the opposition to this bill and the way it was misconstrued and miscommunicated about and lied about in order to stop it from happening. And that, you know, that's just pretty typical for any bill that goes up. People have always got some bullshit to say about stuff. And, you know, maybe it's a good bill, maybe it's a bad bill. It all depends on your point of view. So this one, you know, didn't go through, if I remember right. And Hubbard took it as a victory because they stopped the psychs. And, you know, the view from, and to clarify all of that real quickly, the view from within Scientology is that psychiatry is the ultimate evil, and that psychiatrists are working in tandem as an organized body to destroy this planet and the mental health and general well-being of everybody on it. And that they can't help themselves, they have to, because they are evil beings who ultimately go back to the planet Farsec from millions and millions and millions and millions of years ago, where this dark plan originated by these evil beings who call themselves, or are now, what we call psychiatrists. Right? This is real Satan, Legion, you know, kind of flat earther level stuff, right? It's like really deep. It's not, in other words, I make the comparison between Hubbard saying the psychs are the ultimate evil and the flat earthers, you know, going to Satan as the ultimate evil. And ultimately flat earth goes to that. And ultimately Scientology goes to psychiatry as the ultimate evil, right? That's the comparison I was trying to draw there. So there you go. All right. George Smiley, could the Church of Scientology openly talk about the past life experiences of Scientologists they have recently discovered through auditing? Hubbard used to all the time, but maybe KSW prevents that. Oh, okay. Interesting question. The first place my mind goes to is a 1957 book called Have You Lived Before This Life that the Church of Scientology published. It's a collection of, I think, 60 or 45 or something anecdotes from various people who attended a clearing congress, a congress of some kind that Hubbard put on in 1957 time period. I think it was 57, 58, where they were run on processes that went to places where they came up with some very science fiction-y kind of memories. And this was all in an effort to, you know, to clear them or whatever. And from these write-ups, from these various people who believed that they had remembered being robots, past life, you know, in different kinds of bodies, as well as meat bodies, right? Human type bodies. There were a lot of wild stories in that book. And this book is published, or was published, as proof of past lives. And, you know, when it was first published back in the 50s, that would have been a lot more titillating and interesting to people than it would be now, where the market has become, you know, is so super saturated with all that. Back then, it wasn't so much. So the Church of Scientology has a history of doing exactly what you're asking about. They've published a whole book of anecdotes of this. They talk about past life experiences with people all the time. But they don't identify the people by name, or they'll give them some pseudonym or some, you know, or generally speaking, unless the person specifically, yeah. That's how they do it. The success stories that they publish in their magazines and in their, you know, like the promotional materials don't generally go into talking about how, I had a robot body 10,000 years ago and I crash landed on my saucer here on Earth and ended up, blowing up an implant station on impulse and then died and picked up another body and I've been stuck here ever since. Like, that's the framework of the kind of story that's told in this book. That's not much of a success story for one, but it's also so specific and so bizarre that it's the kind of thing that's not generally going to be featured in success stories or promotional material from Scientology these days. Back in the 70s and the 60s, that kind of stuff had promotional value. People were like, what? And went for that. They don't go for it so much now, to say the least. So you'll find, I guess the point of what I'm trying to say there is that over different periods of time, you'll find the Church of Scientology's official attitude about what is and isn't acceptable to talk about or report on with their parishioners changes, right? And how do you promote this stuff? How do you market this stuff? It's different. It changes. So I think that's how I could best answer your question, because it's mostly promotional materials like that where that kind of stuff is going to come up. Yeah, I think. Yeah, that's what I could say about that. All right. Let's see what we got here. Okay. Once a witness, what's your opinion on naturopathic medicine and doctors? Is it real medicine or another kind of healthcare? Okay. Well, alternative medicine that works is just called medicine, as a broad, sort of snarky response to that. But let's take a look at what naturopathic medicine is defined as here, so I'm super clear on what I'm talking about. Naturopathic medicine is a form of alternative medicine that focuses on using natural remedies to help the body heal itself. Practitioners known as naturopaths use a variety of natural practices, including herbal medicine, nutrition, and lifestyle changes, rather than pharmaceutical drugs or surgery, which are seen as more invasive or less natural. Okay. So basically, it's the idea that folk treatments, people-level treatments, common sense advice about how to deal with things naturally, none of that artificial stuff, to treat things. I think that I am not a medical expert. And I think that bodies are incredibly individual from one to the next to the next. I think that there are things we have a lot in common, but I think you're going to find such a variety of difference between one body and another, one case and another, two different people who both have diabetes. That word could be the only thing that is joining them. I mean, everything else about them is so wildly different that how you treat that diabetes is going to be different between those two people, even though they both share what could be described as the same condition. So the concept that there is or should be, well, the idea that there is, forget the should be's. It would be really great if there was, but the idea that there is a one-size-fits-all kind of solution for treating our bodies or treating what ails us can be somewhat, ephemeral, right? I mean, a little hard to get hold of. What works for one person isn't necessarily going to work for another person, or it won't work exactly the same way, or it won't work to the same degree, or it'll work more, it'll work too much, right? And it causes another set of problems. It's also different. And I say all of that only to point out the variety, the huge variety in our experiences. So, somebody takes an herb because they're feeling bad, and they feel better as a result. Well, I'm going to be the last person who's going to say, well, you're wrong for doing that. Where I lose my mind a little bit, or my ability to empathize with the person who is suffering, is when there are known, proven, evidence-based treatments for things that are covered perfectly well in regular medical science, and let's call it science, in terms of testing, case studies, proof, labs, statistics, I mean, all the stuff that makes science, that all the stuff of it, right? When you have somebody like a Steve Jobs, famous classic example of somebody who went down a naturopathic route and fucking died when he didn't have to, because he thought he knew better than everybody else, because he was Steve fucking Jobs, right? And so he declines and eschews and poo-poos cancer treatments that he could have, that could have extended his life, and went off down some other path. And then as he died, regretted that once the reality of the situation really hit him upside the head, that he was dying and there was nothing that was going to stop that. He went, oh, wow, boy, did I make a big mistake here, you know? That's where I have a problem with the attitude about naturopathic versus scientific-based medicine, right? If you want to go with a folklore remedy that works for you, and it works for you, fine. Why would I have a problem with that? I wouldn't. Never would. But if it doesn't work for you and you just think it does, or you have some faith-based idea, or you know, some other disinformation-based idea that this ivermectin or something, right, is your cure for COVID, and you don't do the usual standard regular things to deal with what you got going on, right, then it's very hard for me to sympathize with that. So that's where I think about drawing any lines in the sand is, you know, if you have an untreatable condition that science or your local doctors or expert physicians are like, you know, then at that point, obviously, do whatever you got to do whatever you want to do. You always have bodily autonomy when it comes to this. But for my position, I'm going to stick with the people who went to school, studied what the hell they're talking about, and base their practice on proven methods, not faith-based methods, right? Until I can't take advantage of that anymore, or it's not available to me in any way, in which case I will then go, well, what do I do here? Well, I think if you know, throw some salt and pepper in a little bag and boil it and then swallow that, it'll probably cure your cancer, right? I might try that after I've left everything else behind, you know? Such a difficult topic, because it's so highly personal and so important to people. Their health is really, you know, at the end, if you don't have your health, what else do you have, you know? It's bad. So I get why people get the way they do, and I would be the first person to be flying down to Mexico for some alternative cancer treatment if I had what was considered to be an untreatable cancer here. I might try something different, but I'm not going to jump to that as my first effort, right? I want to go with what I know is going to work most of the time. That's how I think about it. Maybe I'm too simple about it, but that's how I think about it. Young Matador. Hey, Chris, are you planning to do any more videos regarding Cardone? The one you released on Saturday was very interesting. There must be others who can tell similar stories to Ben John. Yeah, I'd like to. I would like to. There's so much to expose. Cardone is such an interesting character too, because he blends Scientology with multi-level marketing with large group awareness training. And it's interesting to find these places where these different, classically different modes of controlling people and scamming them come together. You know, when you take a bit of this and you take a bit of that and you put it together and you get Cardone, you get his whole 10X thing. I think Ben said he's got something like 11, or Aaron said something like that. He's got like 11 different companies or something. And now he's got 10X kids. I mean, this man has no bottom, no shame. There is nobody he won't scam because he doesn't care about anybody else but himself. Right? That's Grant Cardone. That's what it is to be a narcissist, megalomaniac like him. I mean, I met the guy. That is who he is. No question in my mind at all. Right? So I love talking about him, but I know he's also very litigious, but he's not going to pay any attention to my little tiny channel. So I'm not worried about that. I'm not really worried about Grant coming after me. But it's just such a deep dive into so much, there's just so much there to deal with. So I want to do it, but when I do it, I want to do it, I don't know, completely. And maybe that's an excuse to not do it at all. Maybe I should dive into that at some point. But I would love to talk to other people who have been scammed by him. I didn't think that interview with Ben was really as good or as I wanted it to be. I would really love to get a lot more detail from somebody who has been down that Cardone pipeline. I'd like to know a lot more about how he runs his operation. I know that his inner circle is exclusively Scientologists. I know that he is politically connected, and I know that he has big, big, big dreams. And it would not surprise me in any way to see him go into into politics as a direction that he might want to go into. He's perfect for it, especially now. He fits the whole Trump MAGA mold to a fucking T, right? He's perfect for it. So he could excel in that direction if he wanted to. But the Scientology connection might make politics difficult for him right now. I don't think that's an easy sell even now. Scientology is still toxic as hell, even in the MAGA crowd. Give it a while, right? Give it a while for Trish and Grant and these people to do what they need to do, and we'll see. You know, I mean, it's a pretty wild place where Trump world is concerned. But we're talking about Grant, so maybe he'll go into politics, or maybe he'll just kind of keep doing what he's doing, or maybe he will turn it into because business consultation and business seminars and business stuff. Man, there's just so much money to be gotten out of that. So maybe he goes in he's kind of a more modern Tony Robbins type, you know. Maybe he'll just keep moving down that road. Maybe he'll just keep going down that path. Hard to say. But, man, the guy is just such a piece of shit. Yeah, so I would very much love to do more content exposing him. Okay, Jan is your man. Maybe I missed it, but some month ago I asked if you could do an episode on your bachelor's degree work. Oh, no, you didn't miss it. Maybe I missed what you meant. I have done shows in my past about my degree and work. A lot of them. I've interviewed my professor twice on my show here, on my old Friday show, and on my Sensibly Speaking podcast. And I have talked in great degree a couple times in interviews that I've done or shows that I did about my academic experience. I've answered questions on the Q&A show about it. I've broken it down in detail more than once. Maybe I'll try to find, here's what I'll do, is I will links to shows about, after this is over, after the live is over, I'm going to post some links in the description section to this video to where I have discussed in detail my degree. So I don't have to, so we won't do that again today. And then you can check those out. Okay, how about that? We'll do it that way. Because there's a lot. There's a lot to talk about when I get into that, and I don't know, maybe I could just refer you back to when we already did that. So how about we'll do it that way. But if you have a specific question about the program or degree, feel free to ask me. I will be more than happy to talk about or answer your questions. But if we talk about the big, broad, tell me all about it, well, an hour later, I'll be done, right? So yeah. Okay, once a witness, do you think LRH's children are horrified of what Scientology has become since their father was the leader? Do they know that Miscavige wasn't the real successor of LRH? No, I don't think L. Ron Hubbard's children. Well, okay, so the only person who's still in Scientology of L. Ron Hubbard's family is his daughter Diana. And she's still up at the base, and as far as I know, she's probably extremely unhappy with how things are. It would be amazing if she wasn't, but she still works in the Sea Org and is still part of the whole picture. The rest of Hubbard's family is long since left Scientology in the dust and doesn't want to have anything to do with it. I don't know if Diana would be aware of whether Miscavige was the real successor or not. That's an interesting, I mean, it's a good question, because Hubbard wasn't, well, we don't really know what kind of communication he had with Diana when he was off in hiding. We don't know if there were any letters or communications between them as father-daughter, or as, Sea Org leader to Sea Org member. We have nothing on that. So it's impossible for me to say whether Diana knew that Miscavige wasn't the guy who should be taking over, or that wasn't what her father wanted. I doubt that she was privy to that level of information about the operations of Scientology at that point. My conjecture is that she did not know. But would she have been happy with Miscavige and the way that he treated the memory of her father and his work? But I can't see how she could possibly be happy about any of that, because she was around, for all of it. I mean, literally growing up in Scientology. We're talking about somebody who grew up in Scientology. Diana Hubbard is somebody who grew up in Scientology, Wow, did she grow up in it? So horrified? Maybe. I don't know. Because I don't know how deep, don't know where her head is at in regards to all this, because she's still in there. So, boy, would she have. Oh, my God. Could you imagine if Diana Hubbard left and spoke out? Oh, my God. I can't think of anyone right now. Now that I've made that connection, I can't think of any living person I would want to come out of Scientology more than her, except Tom Cruise. Because Tom Cruise would have a much, much, much bigger public impact. But Diana could tell you where the bodies are buried more than Tom Cruise could. Diana could dish on Hubbard in a way no one else could. Wouldn't that be amazing? If she actually, came out of that? I have no hope that she will, but man, would that be amazing. Ooh. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Jan says, I'm so interested in it. This missed in the first part of the question. I read your book on Scientology. Really interested in your work. Thanks. Okay, excellent, Jan. Excellent. And like I said, I'll get those links for you, right? I hope I'm not coming across like I'm trying to brush you off. I'm really not. I want you to get all the information on the program. So I want you to get, the big talks that we did about it. So like I said, I'll link those to you, and you let me know if those don't do it for you, or if after that you still have questions for me. Okay, let's try it that way. Okay, Sam Slade, are you familiar with Financial Success, a Life Improvement course? What did Hubbard advise? I find it unlikely that Sea Org members have enough income to follow his advice on $50 to $75 a week. Yeah. Here's what I can remember from the Financial Success course. I did it, and it was it's a little Div 6 course based off of Hubbard's policies on how to deal with your finances. And Hubbard's finance policy were along the lines of don't have any credit, pay it all off, use cash only to pay for everything. have more than one source of income, and every single source of income should be enough to keep you viable, and you have to have more than one of those at any one time. He advised that. What else did he advise? Obviously keeping good records, paying your debts, but fuck people who come after you for your debts. He had an interesting take on that one, right? The finance policy in regard to debtors is if they're dunning you, you give them the cold shoulder in a way, if I remember that right. Don't know if Hubbard was somebody who paid his debts as an individual or as a man. Somehow I doubt it. I think Hubbard was the guy who everybody always, you know, he always owed like 20 or 40 or 50 or $100 to, you know what I mean? I'm pretty sure Hubbard was that guy. Never heard anybody say that, but I'm just sort of thinking out loud here. I definitely remember the thing about the credit. Because, and the reason why I remember that one so strongly, of course, is because in Scientology, everybody has credit. You can't do Scientology without credit. But Hubbard's financial advice is crystal clear about this. No credit, you know? So it's kind of funny, very funny, in fact, that it's so blatantly said that way. And, yeah, those are the things I remember from it. I can't remember if the financial success or if it was somebody explaining it to me at some point later. But there was also the concept of allocating your income into little envelopes or into little bits where, you know, you'd gradually save up for stuff, right? Like, okay, I've got this allocated for the, you know, I'm going to take 30% off the top and that's going to go to bills, and I'll allocate them in date order, right? This is certainly how churches run, so it's probably how Hubbard said to do it personally too, right? Is you take X amount for your bills sum, and you divvy it up, and you put it, you have your set asides, and you set aside your money for your electric and your water and your this and your that, and you know, and if they are dunning you, and not willing to go along with your payment plan or whatever, then, you know, blow them off or something. I think that was in there. Anyway, that's what I can remember about that. Also, Sam Slade, both Frank Hubbard and LRH had gay sons they didn't accept. I'd be interested to hear your take on why you think both of them, even whilst rejecting Judeo-Christian thinking, thought this way. Sorry, just checking something here. Yeah, I mean, we have Quentin with L. Ron Hubbard. I'm not sure who Frank Hubbard is that you're referring to. I'm probably having a huge memory whatever right now, but I don't know who you're talking about. I know LRH had a gay son, but I don't know who Frank Hubbard is. So I can't speak to to Frank Hubbard's motivations, but I can certainly speak to LRH. Hubbard grew up in a time where homosexuality was viewed as a mental illness and perversion, a moral perversion of, you know, like kind of like, I don't know, kind of like people think about atheists now. I was going to say, you know, a little joke, but like it was just socially unacceptable, period. Even if everybody kind of knew or thought they knew, it was still like you couldn't talk about it. You couldn't bring it out. You couldn't have a conversation about it, period. Hubbard definitely came from that school, you know? I was just thinking about his affirmations, in fact. Take a look here since I've got them right here. You know, I don't recall anything in here in these affirmations where he speaks quite openly and privately about his health issues and problems and concerns. I don't remember him saying anything in here about any homosexual tendencies he might have had, even though I believe he had them. Certainly there were questions Yeah, here we go. There were certainly questions about whether Hubbard, maybe, I don't know that I would think about Hubbard as gay, but I think he engaged in some homosexual activities with Jack Parsons. I suspect that that's the case during those magical rituals that they would do, the OTO stuff. And I'm opening it up here, and I see any distaste I may have for Jack Parsons. This is L. Ron Hubbard talking. Any distaste I may have for Jack Parsons originated in a psychic experiment. Such distaste is foolish. He is my friend and comrade in arms. Just before that, he says, I can have no doubts of my psychic powers. My magical ability is high and clear. I earned my titles and command. So he's really talks here about how poly is not good for his sexuality, and met a girl in New York, Helen, who pleased him very much. I'm only going into this a little bit because I don't remember Hubbard talking about any sort of homosexual urges or anything in his affirmations, which would mean that it was something he was struggling with during the time he was hanging with Jack Parsons. So I'm gonna since I don't recall it and I didn't see it there, I don't think that's there. So I think Hubbard didn't think of himself that way, even if he engaged in homosexual activity with Jack Parsons as part of a magical rituals, right? Or what do they call those things? Can't remember. Sorry, guys, my memory's having little burps today, but the spells that they cast, right? Anyway, I think that Hubbard had a homophobia installed into him by the society and culture that he grew up in that was so strong that he just could not deal with that. I think that his disappointments with his son Quentin go far beyond any homosexual traits that Quentin had. I think he was more upset by the fact that he was abandoned, that his son was not loyal to him and did not follow in his footsteps or want to follow in his footsteps. I think that set Hubbard off. I'm thinking, this is just my opinion, but I think those things set him off more than Quentin's homosexuality. And I think Quentin's homosexuality or homosexual tendencies did set Hubbard off. You see what I'm saying? But I think in the list of things that set Hubbard off about his kid, that was just one of a number of things. You know, the thing about people like Hubbard is it's the loyalty and the fact that you'll do anything for them that is the real measure of value to them as to, whether you're any good or not. Yeah, making him look bad. Exactly, as Irina mentions here, right? Oh, that's interesting. Mike's theory, Irina posts here in the comments about Jack and the Master and Hubbard was the sub kind of thing, the follower. Sorry, I'm mixing language there. Maybe. Yeah, maybe. That could be. Okay. OBG Foster. Did being a big reader make you more susceptible to Scientology? Yes. Yeah, it did. Because I thought I was smarter than I was. I've said before, I think fairly recently, but let me lay on to this a little bit more. I was so naive when I walked into the Church of Scientology at 15 years old. And I was so well read by that time that I thought I knew a lot more and that I had a lot more worldly experience than I did. We all know the difference between book learning and life learning, and you read something and then you actually go do it or see it or experience it, and that there are vast differences between these things. But how do we learn that? By living it. And when I was 15 years old, I hadn't lived shit. So I had, what had I done in the world? I had worked for a few months at a Burger King. I had been on some camping trips, and that was about it as far as my worldly experience goes. I had barely been out of state, much less out of the country. Never been out of the country that I can recall as a kid. I just didn't have any real vision or idea about how things worked, and my mouth was my worst enemy. I was constantly saying stupid shit that was pissing people off. I still do. But there was no experience, There was no filter a lot. Or there was barely a filter. And I had a very, very inflated idea of my own wisdom, and my lack of experience. They were practically, they were just crawling all over each other to get to me. You know what I mean? Like, I was just such an easy mark. So being a reader, while giving me an awful lot of education and knowledge, I understand, I don't regret it. I'm not regretful right now about reading or all the knowledge that I gained doing so, but I'm trying to make the point that it gave me a self-image that was not accurate, that was not really a very good estimation of where I was at and how I could deal with people. I thought I could see it coming, a con or a snark or somebody, who was unfriendly to me or something. I thought it would be more obvious. I thought I could see it, and I just never experienced anything like what Scientology does to you. What love bombing is. I had never in my life experienced. Did I ever? Let me see. Hang on a second. Before I say that, let's think about this for a second. As far as I can recall, yeah, I think I can say this with certainty. There had never been a time in my life up until that point, walking into the Church of Scientology, that anybody had even bothered to try to love bomb me. So I had no idea what that experience was. And when somebody, when adults are love bombing you, attractive adults, wise sounding adults, people who do look like they've had some experience, do look like they know what they're talking about, and really seem to care about you. Shut up and take my money. They just couldn't take it fast enough. So that's how it made me susceptible. It's nothing wrong with reading. There's nothing wrong with learning or education. But when you're a kid, and 15 years old is a kid, you don't know shit. And I didn't. And I was primed before I even walked in the door to fall for it. And I did, So I think that's the most honest answer I can give you to that. George Smiley, have you considered doing a show about Jody Hildebrandt, Mormonism plus manipulative therapy techniques with some echoes to Scientology? You bet I do. I want to do that very much. In fact, I would like to do that with Bryce and Shannon. We've got plans right now. We're setting up in a few weeks to do the next show in this kind of continuing rollout that I'm sort of doing through my Speaking of Cults podcast on Mormonism. And we want to talk about the secession problem, because I think there are some very interesting possibilities presented by Joseph Smith's death and the rise of Brigham Young and the continuation of the prophet line in Mormonism, and what's going to happen in Scientology. It's worth looking at least. Because if there's one thing you can say about Joseph Smith, is that when he was taken out, it was under the least friendly and ideal circumstances as far as the Mormon church was concerned at that time, right? And Brigham Young steps up, and how did that happen? What did that look like? I'm super curious. I don't know. And I'm going to very much, pick the brains of my two Mormon resources for that. I really look forward to talking to them about that. But the point you bring up about Jody Hildebrandt and the more, that more current story, I covered it when it was first kind of breaking news on that cult news show that I was working on doing. But I do want to I would love to do a show on that. Yeah. But I've got a lot of other stuff in the pipeline first. You guys tell me what you think about this. I'm thinking right now of what I can do to help best in this world right now. And obviously, just sitting ranting about Trump or Musk or something doesn't feel very productive to me, unless I can offer some kind of insights or information to people that will help them, or or educate them or something. So I thought, but if I do that, then I'm not talking to a third of the country, right? Who are already probably completely turned off by anything I have to say anyway. But what do I do, right? What do I do? Because it feels like no matter what I do, things just keep getting smaller and smaller for me here on this platform. It doesn't matter what I do. It just keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller, right? And I'm like, okay, well, what do I want to do? What should I be doing? What would be the best thing for me to do with the information that I have to offer to the world? What is the best thing I could do? And so I'm thinking educate on coercive control and cults, and try to do that in maybe, like I said, I have all these scripts and everything written out, because I'm thinking maybe if I go shorter rather than longer, I don't know. I just want people to get this information. It's not about me anymore. When I first started my channel, I was kind of into myself a lot, and I'm really not anymore. I don't really, it's not about me, right? It's not about, oh, Chris Shelton's such a great guy. I just want people to get the information I'm trying to get across. And I feel like I'm not doing that job very well. So that's why I'm trying to constantly, rethink what am I doing and how can I do it better, So Jody Hildebrandt is certainly something that is very interesting and timely to talk about. But if I can't draw from that some kind of and here's something to take away from that other than what a horrible bitch Jody Hildebrandt is and how crazy all the Mormons are, that's not what I think. And I'm not saying that's what you're asking me to do. I'm definitely not saying that. It's what my mind goes to when I start thinking about content of that kind. I want to do timely stuff that's going to be interesting to people. I really, really do. But I'm limited by a lot of things. There's a lot of things that are just kind of limiting what I can do. So I'm trying to do the best that I can to get stuff out as quickly as I can. But I think I'm going to be focusing a lot of finishing this 5-part series on just what cults are and how it works, just kind of break that down, and then these shorts and then some other stuff. So there's a lot there just in what I just said. Anyway. Sorry, George, I'm rambling. I will stop doing that. Okay. Sorry about that. John O'Nolan, can you tell me about this spirit of play concept in Scientology? It seems like a positive thing. Yes, I can. In fact, I'm looking up right now the actual poem. Hubbard first mentions the spirit of play in 1952 in a lecture series. I believe it was the Philadelphia Doctorate Course Lectures, where this is December 1952, where he talks about how there is this, that a Thetan has a spirit of play. This sort of like, insouciant, playful, thing. They're just kind of going around in the universe and let's have some fun, and they're just kind of like these fun little beings. And this is what Thetans are. And they can get into this spirit of play where it's gamesmanship and it's let's have a contest or let's do some stuff. And, that kind of attitude is how Hubbard sort of describes this spirit of play. He later wrote a poem of sorts, The Joy of Creating. That's what it's called. I looked up Joy of Creating. Just because I want to get it totally right for you guys. Force yourself having a hard time finding it here. Force yourself to smile and you'll soon find something to smile about. Force yourself to smile and you'll soon stop frowning. Force yourself to laugh and you'll soon find something to laugh about. The greatest joy there is in life is in creating. The greatest joy there is in life is creating. And there's something about the spirit of play in this Joy of Creating poem. Sorry, it's been so long now. I'm starting to lose the Scientology that I used to know off the top of my head. I'm not sad about that, but it's interesting, isn't it? I used to be able to rattle that off without even thinking twice about it. Now I actually can't get some of the lines in it. That's interesting. Anyway, spirit of play is this thing that Hubbard talked about, and it was fun, and it made things... When we talked about it and used it between ourselves as Scientologists, as staff members, and less so as Sea Org members, mostly it got me through a lot of hard times as a staff member. And it's this idea of blowing off worry and concern and stress. Just push it off. Let's just not do that. Let's not have that right now. We're going to do spirit of play. We're going to get excited. We're going to motivate ourselves. It would result, I thought about this the other day. I wanted to share it with you guys. These sayings, these mantras that don't even barely say anything, but they sound inspirational. There was one that went around for a few years when I was in Scientology. It takes the fire of life within to set life on fire. That is a statement that is kind of, let's go, spirit of life, fire inside, right? To set life on fire, spirit of play. Let's go, let's do this thing. Let's rah, 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 right? It's a lot of rah-rahing. That's what it's used for in Scientology. To get people to stop thinking and just do what they know is the right thing to do. Pay for that intensive. Do this course. Blow off work today. Come in and finish your course. Spirit of play, baby. Come on. It's fun. It's a game. We're playing a game. Let's have it. Let's have games. Let's be fun about this. That's what the spirit of play is in Scientology. That's how it manifests. So it's a way to sort of try to force yourself to be insouciant, is a word Hubbard used to describe this. Be uncaring, be happy. Force yourself up the tone scale. That's what this motion here is, right? Go up the tone scale. And from this higher position on the tone scale, you will see that all these concerns and worries and problems that you have are just considerations and nonsense. And you're just mocking it up. You're just creating it yourself. And see, when you feel great and you can laugh about it all, look at how small all of those things look, right? Now, this particular little emotional manipulation technique is not inherently a bad thing. There's nothing wrong with forcing yourself to smile. And there's nothing wrong with forcing yourself to laugh, to get yourself into a different headspace and turn your brain into a different state. There's nothing wrong with doing that. There is everything wrong with doing that to manipulate somebody to get money or time or attention out of them that they don't want to or otherwise wouldn't give you, right? Manipulating somebody with this tactic, this emotional manipulation tactic, is unethical. It's not okay. So it's the sort of thing that is actually works to kind of get you out of the doldrums. Sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't, right? But sometimes it does. And you're not doing yourself a bad. You're not abusing yourself to do that. It's okay to kind of take charge of how you feel and try to feel better. And that's kind of how Scientologists would use the spirit of play and the writings and sayings about it. Because they're, and obviously if you step out a little bit and you look at the situation there and you see how those little moments, those times when they can, gen up the spirit of play and the laughter and the fun, those are that's how you make those kind of situations bearable. It's it's a little bit like that. Okay, so I'll leave it at that since I'm getting some good comments on that answer, so we'll move on. Okay, Stuart Gorman. What's your favorite piece of artwork you have around the house, or a recent one if you can't pick a favorite? I do have a favorite. I have a poster from the movie poster, full size. I've had it framed for years and years. It used to be in the background on my videos many, many years ago. It is the movie poster of the Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is my favorite movie. Bar none. Raiders of the Lost Ark is my favorite piece of cinematic work. So the artwork from it, from that movie poster, is what keeps that alive for me. And so that's my, that I have around the house. I also have there's a sort of a silver and black and a painting rendering of Batman that's pretty cool that we have here from Arkham Asylum. That's a pretty good shot of Batman. But I'd have to say my movie poster is my favorite one. My second favorite piece of artwork that I have in the house, by the way, is something I brought back from Australia. I brought an Aborigine-made painting that I bought from a store, Aboriginal store in Perth, that I brought back here. That was kind of cool. We got that on the wall in the hallway too. So those are my things there. Okay, Young Matador, apologies if I've missed anything, but have you done any videos on the Zizian cult? They're apparently linked to 4 to 6 murders in America since 2022. I have not, and the reason why is I'm waiting for the full story to come out. Then I'll probably cover it or talk about it once I get my wits around the whole thing. Right now, it's still developing as far as I'm concerned. I want the whole story out. I don't want to piecemeal that or play around with it. It's weird. It's convoluted. There's many people involved. It's a complicated sort of weird thing, and I need it to get fully investigated and out before I want to dive into the middle of that and say something stupid. Right? I want all the data out first. Then we can do a full kind of breakdown of what happened, how it happened, who this who the manipulators were and how the manipulation happened. I'm keen to see how that all breaks down, but I'm not going to play at, investigating it or trying to figure it out while it's still in process. I hope that makes sense. It's a choice that I'm making on that, but that's how I want to deal with that. I'm fascinated by it, by the way. It's very interesting. The little bits and pieces we have are interesting, but I'm not sure what whole picture is yet put together by this. Maybe if it's all out there already and the whole thing is all like out there, but I don't think it is. If I'm wrong, let me know. Oh yeah, Miss Tara Green. Have you seen the theater play, The Book of Mormon? Very good for explaining a lot of the current methods of Mormons. I have not yet seen it. It's come to town here in Denver like 3 or 4 times. I can't afford it, so I can't go. And that's why I haven't seen it. And I'm not even saying anything else than that. I just can't. So I haven't been able to see it yet. I really, really want to. I wish they'd make a movie version or something like they did with Wicked. Because I would really, really like to see it. Okay. Well, here we are. We're 2:30. I've reached the end of the questions for today. So we're at a good place. So I think it's a good time to wrap up. Thanks for coming around and listening to me gabber on and amadorate about all of this. I hope that the things that I had to say today were useful. I will make sure I get those links on the on my Salford program up for you. And if you guys have wonderful suggestions for me, so I hope I'm not being too snarky or in my responses to that. I wish I had the ability. I wish I had a production team. I wish I had the ability to just like crank out everything I think about, because I have outlined and written in my head and thought through so many things that I wish I could just produce and give you, but it's just me. So, and so I just got to take the time that I unfortunately end up taking, getting this stuff done. You guys, great suggestions. Keep them coming. Okay. I don't mean to push back on this. Like whatever. I do want to know what you guys want to see. Hopefully this next week I can get this part 2 video done of this 5-part series. I'm trying to get that done around some other work. And I want to dive into this America First thing, also this America First Policy Institute. I've done the dive into it a bit. The thing that Trish Duggan is a board member of, that is actually putting cabinet members in position in the White House, more so than the Project 2025 stuff. That there's a lot of crossover, but like I said, I'm really concerned about Scientology's influence in our government right now. Like, I'm really concerned about it. And it doesn't seem like it's on anybody's radar at all outside of our little Scientology world, on top, because there's such bigger issues, I suppose, for sure, that people are dealing with. But it's just, how can it be that we have high-level Scientologists directly influencing the anatomy of our government and cabinet positions, and nobody seems to care because there's such bigger issues right now? Like what is going on? It's like crazy town. I hate that. It drives me. It's like, man, we got some work ahead of us. So, okay. All right. Thanks for coming around, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next week. All right. Bye-bye.